Welcome back to Ghost Powered Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today we talk about 10 of my favorite heroines in horror movies. If you would like to help support this channel, as well as a bunch of other cool perks, you can become a Patreon member today. The link is down below, but I'd love to give a big special thank you to all my Patreon supporters. You guys are amazing and help keep my fire burning. But with that, let's get to the list. So recently, I was thinking about all my favorite movies from 2020. And I realized that all my favorite horror movies that I've discovered this year, not all necessarily movies that came out this year, but they were movies that, for whatever reason, I hadn't seen, or they were new. Either way, they were movies that I had just seen for the first time this year. And I realized that an amazing thing had happened. I hope I can convey this in a way that explains the importance this is to me. So for pretty much my whole life, all my favorite entertainment, TV, movies, video games, like whatever, if there was a lead character who was a hero, so to speak, it was always a male. And that's just how it always has been. And I'm not saying that I was always like, that's how it should be, by any means. But it's just the way it is in entertainment. It's very sexist. It's always been that way. And I've been a fan of seeing more and more female characters playing these heroic characters and turning heroines into just another hero. You know, it shouldn't matter, male, female, whatever, just a cool character should be a cool character. But it just hadn't happened. But I was realizing when I was going over my list this year, how many of them, without even thinking about it, were female. And it wasn't at any point where I was like, oh, well, that's cool because she was a female. No, these were just fantastic characters in fantastic roles in movies that I really enjoyed that happened to be female. And to me, that's how it should be. You know, I definitely believe in minorities getting more chances, females getting more chances. You name it, okay? It doesn't matter. Sexual orientation, religion, I don't give a fuck. If you're a cool actor, you deserve an opportunity, period, okay? I've always felt this way. But it's really nice and a great feeling to me to realize that the change is starting to happen. That these were amazing characters, amazing actors, and they just so happen to be female in these awesome roles. Alright, so kicking off this list at number 10 is Nancy Thompson, played by Heather Langenkamp from Nightmare on Elm Street. And Nancy is one of those early survivor girls, you know, those heroes that were early in the horror genre, and they were ones that were early, especially in my life. Like from, you know, when I was first starting to get into horror movies, she was one of those first who I fell in love with. Yes, I had a crush on her, but the thing I loved so much about her was just that never say die type of attitude. But it wasn't her beauty, and it wasn't her might, so to speak, that made her such an awesome hero that you're rooting for in this movie. Even though she was both those things, it was her smarts. She outsmarted Freddy, and that's what I loved so much about her. She was a total badass as well. I mean, like, she completely turned her house into this, like, landmine field, trap field, you know, place to kick Freddy's ass. And that was just such a badass moment, and one of the things that is just so great about the first Nightmare on Elm Street. Next up, at number 9, is Alice, played by Milla Jovovich from Resident Evil. And honestly, she is such a badass that she rivals characters like Arnold and Predator and Stallone in a bunch of like Rambo and movies like that. I mean, she just is an action hero badass, and I absolutely love Milla Jovovich. She just kicks so much ass in so many different movies, but especially in the Resident Evil movies. She never for a second makes you doubt her because, oh, she's female and she's beautiful. She's not going to be able to handle whatever. No, dude, fuck you. It has nothing to do with being female or beautiful. She's just straight up a fucking beast, man. Like, she just kicks so much ass. And I love Alice. And you can question the Resident Evil movies, and I don't blame you. Especially after the first one. There's a lot of problems with them. And even the first one, I understand, especially if you're a diehard fan of the game, that there are issues with the movie. But to me, there is no question about the character Alice. Like, she is just a serious kick-ass badass who just ravages through these movies. And I absolutely love her, and I love this character. Next up at number 8 is Crystal Creasey, played by Betty Gilpin from the movie The Hunt. And I actually did a review on it, so I definitely recommend checking that out. But Crystal, Betty Gilpin, I just fell in love with her this year. That's one of the movies that I just completely fell in love with that came out this year because it's just so much fun. But she completely makes this movie. And I really enjoy this movie for a lot of things. But to me, she is by far the star of this film. I love her deadpan type of sense of humor where it's very wry and you have to really kind of pay attention to get the humor that she's laying down. But yet at the same time, no question that she's a badass. And not for a second do you kind of question it. You know, you buy it completely. You know, when she's going through this movie, just whooping some serious ass, outsmarting people, and then also just straight up physically kicking people's asses. You don't question it. You totally buy it. She is completely just a savage. And I love that. She never for a second made me think about, oh, this is a female kicking ass in this movie. No, she's just a serious badass. She's like what I'm talking about. She represents that kind of newer thing that's been going on more and more where, like I said, where females are just heroes. And it doesn't fucking matter that they're female. They're just this badass lead character that just kicks ass, that just so happens to be female. And she's definitely one of my favorites in the last few years. Next up at number 7 would be Erin, played by Sharni Vinson from the movie You're Next. And she epitomizes that same thing that I was talking about with Betty Gilpin. She is just a savage. Like, this movie really surprised me with how, she was just such a beast. Like, she really goes for it in this movie, but yet very believable. Like, at first you don't expect this from her at all. But then as it gets going and ramps up, you're like, all right, I can totally see that. Like, she's got the mental awareness where it feels like she mentally is outsmarted these people, but she's also physically just right there, but also just a savage. Like, she's got no problem with chopping your lungs out. You know what I mean? I mean, she just comes right at you and just severs you and it's just like, see ya, lays you to waste, move the fuck on. And I love that. You know, these characters now that are just so vicious, and I love that. Like, she definitely comes off as this vicious assassin type of thing, and is very believable. But she's definitely one of my new favorite heroes that just kills it, you know, just absolutely murders the game. Next up at number 6, we go back a little bit, and that would be Sidney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell from the film Scream. And anybody that knows me knows that Scream is one of my all-time favorite slashers, one of my favorite all-time horror movies. Like, I just love it. It was one of kind of the early loves for me in my horror life. You know, I was late teens when it came out in theaters, and I went and saw it in theaters, and it was just, you know, from the moment it started, it's just such a fun movie. But Neve Campbell kills this role. If you don't have that character, you don't have Scream. Like, she is so important and so amazing in this role. And she's definitely the epitome of that survivor girl type of thing, where she's not a badass, she's just kind of a normal teenage girl, but she finds something. She finds a way to dig down deep and become a hero. Finds a way to just overcome the odds and fuck these guys up. You know, her boyfriend betrays her, her mom dies, like all these things. But she just overcomes the emotion, she overcomes the fear, she overcomes maybe not physically being equal to these assailants, but she fucking does it anyway. She's over the top, comes at you, and just kills you. And by the end of this movie, she's just completely become a savage, a total warrior, and just fucks your shit up. And I love her in this role. Next up at number 5 would be the bride, Grace, played by Samara Weaving from Ready or Not. And this is another movie that I discovered this year and just definitely become one of my favorite movies, definitely from the last few years, and quickly become one of my favorite characters, one of my favorite heroes from the last probably decade or so. This movie is just an absolute blast. And she really is, once again, that survivor girl, but she takes it to the top. Like, she is such a survivor, such a warrior, goes through absolute hell and just keeps fighting, just keeps going. And I just love it because she doesn't play that role of, oh, she's just a beast out of nowhere, all this, like, you know, Black Ops training or whatever. Like, no, she's just this regular person. But but that just overcomes these great odds and these fucking lunatics all around her and just finds a way to kick their fucking ass and to just keep surviving and attacking and just gets through it. And it's just so much fun. She's one of the greatest Survivor characters that I can think of. Like, just so awesome. And the fact that she's in this wedding dress and just nothing stops her, no matter what. Gets nails through her hands, fuck it, keeps going. You know, goes through pain, gets dirty, like, just completely fucked up in every way possible, but yet just keeps coming and keeps surviving and fighting. And it's just beautiful. Next up at number 4, one of the OGs, Sally Hardesty, played by Marilyn Burns from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And like I said, she's one of the OGs. She's one of those original Survivor girls that just kept fucking fighting no matter what and just kept surviving no matter what. And God almighty, she goes through hell. And it wasn't just in the role that she go through hell, but the poor actress actually went through hell. Like, if you look and read the behind the scenes of all the bullshit that was done to her in this role, like, it just sucks. Like, in the movie and behind the scenes. Like, she just filthy, disgusting clothing, horrific hours, awful heat, just all kinds of stuff, okay? It was just brutal, but she fought through it and just gave a hell of a performance. And for such a low-budget movie with nobody names behind it, you know, behind the scenes as well as in the camera, she just rises to the top and it just really makes this movie amazing, makes it believable. And she just really put on this terrifying performance of this poor girl who just goes through absolute hell, but that just finds the strength to somehow survive. And in so many ways, she's part of who really started the whole idea of a Survivor girl because of how amazing she is in this role. Next up at number 3 would be one of my favorite characters from any movie, not just horror, but from any movie of all time. And that would be Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster from the movie Silence of the Lambs. And Jodie Foster just kills this, okay? And obviously, Jodie Foster, I mean, she just kills movies. She's one of the greatest actors ever. But in this movie, this might be my favorite thing I've ever seen her do. And it's, like I said, it's one of my all-time favorite characters of anything ever. Like, she's just so brilliant in this movie in so many ways. She's believable as this brilliant detective who solves this heinous murder. She's believable in that she is not all this hardened, you know, detective of 50 years, you know. She's still new to the FBI and still kind of learning to be hardened and able to survive through this. So she's a survivor in a way of that too. But she's just, in every way, just awesome, you know. She outsmarts, she physically finds a way to get shit done, she's conniving, she just guts it up and survives through hell and sees horrible things and guts that out too. Like, she just kills this role and is just such a fun role to watch. And I mean, the character Hannibal Lecter, of course, you know, takes the limelight, so to speak. Everybody talks about that character. But I feel like the character of Clarice maybe doesn't get quite the credit it deserves, because to me, without that character, the character of Hannibal Lecter just doesn't have that same intensity and that same power. But because of that character opposing him and just the dynamic between the two of them and the conversations between Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster, like, to me, just makes this movie just such an amazing movie. And shit, I mean, it won an Academy Award, so, I mean, what else do you need? But, I just love the movie, but I love that character, both those characters, but I love the character of Clarice. Alright, next up, at number 2, is Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis from Halloween. And what has there not been said about this character and about Jamie Lee Curtis? I mean, Scream Queen? Like, just, she is that final girl, you know? She's so much fun in so many ways. She's this vulnerable teenager who doesn't seem like much, doesn't seem like in any way she'd be able to survive this ordeal, but she goes toe-to-toe with Michael and just keeps fighting and overcomes her physical, you know, challenge of, I mean, this is Michael fucking Myers, okay? But she still fights through it. She uses smarts. She uses, you know, her wits and guts up the fear that she's overwhelmed with. You know, all these different things. Jamie Lee Curtis just kills this role because of so many things she conveys in this role. You feel her fear. You know, you feel all these emotions and all these things going through her, but it just makes you feel so much more like excitement when you just see her say, "Fuck you, Michael," and just keeps fighting through it. And of course, you know, gotta have Laurie Strode on this list. Like, one of my very, very favorite characters ever as well. Alright, and at number 1, you could probably guess it because it's really a fucking no-brainer, and that would be Ripley, played by Sigourney Weaver from the Alien franchise. She is that female hero, you know, she is one of the greatest heroes ever. Doesn't matter her sex, you don't care for a second that she's a female. And in this first movie, she's not this badass soldier type, okay? She's just this regular person, but she just finds a way, using everything imaginable, goes up against this creature that just seems like it's impossible to kill. And yes, in the second movie, Aliens, the xenomorph is a lot more vulnerable to shoot it, kill it, whatever. But in that first movie, it just seems like it's impossible to beat this creature. And she uses her smarts. She uses everything to her advantage and just finds a way to survive. How could you ever make a list of any kind of hero ever and not put Ripley on it? Her story arc, you know, she starts out as this vulnerable character that doesn't seem like she could any way overcome something like this, but she does. And she just keeps clawing and fighting, you know, to get through. And then in the second one, she just keeps going even more and more. And as the series goes on, she just turns into this serious fucking killer. And just so much fun to watch. Just definitely one of my favorite characters ever. One of my favorite heroes ever. Like I said, you'd never make a list of any kind of hero ever to do with any movies, you know, theatrical movies, period, TV shows, like you name it. You'd never make a list of heroes and not put Ripley on it. So there's no way I can make a list like this without putting Ripley at number 1. But no matter what, I think this is a great list of these amazing heroes, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear what you would put on your list. What are some of the ones that I missed? Some of the ones I forgot? Maybe I'll make a second list, you know, with some other ones later on. Alright, that's going to wrap it up for me today. Please hit that subscribe button and ding that little bell, because that's the best way you can keep track of me and when I post videos like this, which I post videos like this at least twice every week. But like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button, and remember, horror can be fun. I will see you guys next time.